Everyone in town knew the twin sons of Chief Dike, Obinna and Ebuka, but not for the reasons one might expect. Their names were not spoken with admiration, but with pity and disdain. Though they were identical in face, their hearts could not have been more different. Where Obinna was disciplined and ambitious, Ebuka was reckless and impulsive. They were like oil and water, forever clashing, never mixing. Their rivalry had begun as childish competition, but had worsened with time. A single event had turned them into bitter enemies. Years ago, when their mother passed away, Chief Dike was devastated. His only solace was seeing his sons carry on his legacy. He had entrusted them with managing a branch of his business to prove their worth. But disaster struck when a large sum of money went missing. Obinna, known for his meticulous nature, accused Ebuka of mismanagement. Ebuka, hot-tempered and proud, swore he was innocent. When Chief Dike investigated, all evidence pointed to Ebuka, and Obinna made sure his father believed it. Humiliated, Ebuka was cast aside, forced to fend for himself, while Obinna rose in power. From that moment, hatred replaced brotherhood. Obinna viewed Ebuka as a disgrace. Ebuka saw Obinna as a traitor. They had not spoken in 5 years. When Chief Dike passed away, the town expected his wealth to be divided neatly. Instead, his lawyer, an aging man with a grave expression, revealed an unthinkable condition. The entire fortune, businesses, properties, investment will belong to you both, the lawyer announced, pausing as the twins stiffened in their seats. But only if you live together in this mansion for 6 months, running the empire as partners. If either of you walks away, everything goes to charity. Silence fell over the room. The twins exchanged murderous glares. "You expect me to live under the same roof as this snake?" Ebuka spat. "I would rather let the money burn than share it with a reckless fool," Obinna shot back. But deep down, neither of them was willing to lose everything. After much arguing, they begrudgingly agreed, and so began the most unbearable 6 months of their lives. The grand mansion that had once been their childhood home became a battleground of silent wars and open hostilities. Every corner of the house held memories, ones that had long since been tainted by resentment. From the moment Obinna and Ebuka stepped into the mansion under the condition of their father's will, it was clear that neither of them intended to make things easy. Within the first week, they had set unspoken rules. No eating at the same table. If Obinna sat in the dining room, Ebuka would grab his meal and eat in the lounge. If Ebuka arrived first, Obinna would retreat to his study. No greetings. Mornings were met with cold silence. Nights ended with doors slamming shut. No acknowledgement of each other's presence unless absolutely necessary. If one entered a room, the other left or acted as though they were invisible. The house staff, once accustomed to Chief Dike's orderly household, tiptoed around the brothers in fear. The tension was suffocating, turning the once swarm mansion into a cold, hostile fortress. It wasn't just avoidance, it was a game of passive-aggressive warfare. Obinna, ever the perfectionist, ran the household like a business. He set strict schedules, ensuring that meals were served at specific times, that the house was always in order, and that all expenses were meticulously recorded. He treated the mansion like his own empire. Ebuka, in retaliation, did everything to disrupt his brother's sense of order. He played loud music at night, shaking the walls with deafening beats whenever Obinna tried to sleep. He invited his rowdy friends over for parties, filling the house with noise and chaos. Obinna would wake up to find cigarette butts on the expensive rugs, liquor stains on the polished floors, and sometimes strangers passed out on the couch. He let the housemates take unapproved days off, leaving the mansion in disorder. Obinna fought back in his own way. He had Ebuka's car towed away, claiming it was part of company property. Ebuka, furious, had to use a local taxi to attend his own outings. He changed the Wi-Fi password just before one of Ebuka's friends came over to stream a football match. The internet shut off in the middle of the game, sparking a heated argument. He threw out all of Ebuka's alcohol and banned loud visitors from the mansion. One night, the tension reached a boiling point. Ebuka stormed into the study, where Obinna sat calmly with a glass of wine in one hand, reviewing business documents. "What the hell is your problem?" Ebuka growled. Obinna didn't even look up. "Which one are you referring to? There are so many." Ebuka grabbed the stack of papers and flung them across the room. "You had my car taken. Are you out of your mind?" Obinna exhaled slowly, as if talking to a child. "It's company property, Ebuka. You don't even work, yet you drive around wasting fuel like a king. The company pays for that car. You contribute nothing." Ebuka's fist clenched. "You think you are so perfect, don't you? Always acting like you're better than everyone. Like you didn't screw me over years ago." Obinna's gaze darkened. "I didn't screw you over. You were careless, and you are still the same reckless fool." Ebuka let out a bitter laugh. "You know what? Keep pretending you're that perfect son. One day, you'll realize money isn't everything." With that, he stormed out, slamming the door so hard that a framed portrait of their father crashed to the ground. Outside the mansion, the fade continued in the bedroom. As part of the will's condition, they had to co-manage their father's empire. That meant attending meetings together, making financial decisions together, and worst of all, trusting each other's judgment. Every meeting ended in disaster. Obinna, the strategic thinker, wanted to focus on expanding the business through calculated risk. Ebuka, the impulsive risk-taker, believed in aggressive investment and fast profits. "We should invest in the new tech startup," Ebuka argued one morning during a board meeting. "They've already shown massive potential." Obinna barely spared him a glance. "That's an emotional decision, not a business one. The market is unstable." "The market is always unstable," Ebuka shot back. "You are too much of a coward to take a chance." The executive sat awkwardly, watching the war unfold. Ebuka's frustration grew with every passing week. Obinna controlled everything. He made the final calls, used his connections, and belittled every suggestion Ebuka made. Ebuka started skipping meetings, drinking more, staying out late. He didn't care anymore. Why fight for something when his own brother refused to see his worth? One night, Ebuka came home heavily drunk. The house staff had already retired, leaving only the dim lights of the grand hallway. As he staggered inside, he found Obinna waiting in the living room, arms crossed. Ebuka smirked. "Oh look, my babysitter." "You are pathetic," Obinna said coldly. "This is why you will never be anything more than a waste of space." Ebuka lunged. He grabbed Obinna by the collar, shoving him against the wall. Years of pent-up rage exploded. "You think I'm a waste?" he hissed. "You destroyed my life, Obinna. You made that turn his back on me." Obinna shoved him off. "Because you deserved it. You were reckless, irresponsible, and selfish." Ebuka threw a punch. It landed. Obinna staggered back, tasting blood in his mouth. His expression twisted into something primal. And then he struck back. A violent scuffle erupted in the once grand hallway. Fists flew, furniture shattered, and portraits fell off the walls. It was no longer about money. It was years of betrayal, pain, and resentment manifesting in violence. By the time they collapsed, exhausted and bloody, they weren't just enemies anymore. They were two broken brothers, staring at the ruins of what should have been family. The next morning, neither of them spoke. The housemates cleaned up the wreckage, pretending not to notice the bruises on their faces. For the first time in years, Ebuka didn't throw a jab. Obinna didn't issue an insult. For the first time, they felt the weight of their father's absence, and neither of them knew what to do next. Weeks passed, and the pressure mounted. Their father's employees, once hopeful, grew uneasy as their battle spilled into the office. Meetings ended in shouting matches, deals collapsed, clients withdrew. The business, which had thrived under Chief Dike, was on the verge of destruction. One fateful night, everything came crashing down. Ebuka returned home drunk from one of his reckless outings. A confrontation erupted in the grand hallway. "You don't deserve to be here," Obinna bellowed, his voice echoing through the mansion. "And you don't deserve to act like you're better than me," Ebuka shouted back, eyes bloodshot. "You ruined my life, Obinna. You framed me for that missing money. You turned our father against me." Obinna's face twisted with fury. "Because you were careless. You never took anything seriously. You were a liability." Ebuka's fist clenched. "I was your brother, and you threw me away like trash." Years of pent-up resentment exploded. They lunged at each other, fists flying, a broken vase, a cracked mirror, blood on the floor. The mansion had finally witnessed the war that had been brewing for years. But in that moment of violence, something shifted. Exhausted, wounded, and breathless, they stared at each other. And for the first time, they saw not an enemy, but the broken boy they had abandoned. The next morning, a housemaid timidly approached them. "Sirs, I found this in Chief Dike's study." It was a letter. The moment they read it, the air grew still. Their father had known everything. "My sons, if you are reading this, then I am gone. And if you are still at war, then you have not learned the truth. The money was never stolen. I fabricated the entire scandal." Their hands trembled. "I watched you two grow apart, each consumed by ego and pride. I had to show you what happens when greed and competition take over love. But I hoped that one day you will find your way back to each other." The paper shook in their grip. All these years of hatred were built on a lie. For days, the mansion was eerily quiet. No insults, no fights, no cold glares. The wounds from the brutal fight had begun to heal, but the scars of betrayal and resentment remained. The letter from their father lay on the dining table, unread since that night. Neither of them had the courage to confront the truth written in their father's words. The once grand mansion felt like a prison. Obinna spent most of his time locked in his study, pretending to work, but the numbers and contracts blurred together. His sharp mind The very thing that had helped him rise in the business world felt dull. For the first time, he questioned everything. Had he been right? Had all his decisions truly been for the best? Ebuka, once full of defiance, barely left his room. The anger that had fueled him for years had fizzled out, replaced by something far worse, emptiness. He had spent so long blaming Obinna that he had never stopped to wonder, what if Obinna had only done what he thought was right? What if neither of them had been entirely right or wrong? One night, the silence became unbearable. The weight of their father's words, the weight of their choices, it was suffocating. The sound of footsteps echoed through the hallway. Obinna looked up from his desk as Ebuka stood at the door. It was the first time in years that Ebuka had come to him without anger. Ebuka crossed his arms but didn't speak right away. His pride was still there, but it had softened. "We need to talk," he said at last. Obinna sighed, placing his pen down. He gestured to the chair across from him. Ebuka hesitated, then sat. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence was thick, heavy with years of unspoken words. "I read the letter again," Ebuka finally said, "every word of it." Obinna leaned forward. His hands clasped, and Ebuka exhaled, his jaw tightening. "He played us, Obinna. He set us against each other." Obinna's gaze darkened. He wanted to prove a point. Ebuka nodded bitterly. "Yeah, that pride and resentment will destroy." Obinna looked down at his hands. "Did it?" Ebuka didn't answer right away. His mind flashed back to the countless fights, the lost years, the broken trust. "It almost did." Obinna sighed, rubbing his temples. "I thought I was doing what was best when I accused you back then. I thought I was protecting the company." Ebuka let out a dry laugh. "You thought you were protecting the company. I thought I was protecting myself. And Dad." His voice trailed off, his expression tightening. He was watching to see how far we would fall. Another silence. This time, it wasn't hostile, it was reflective. "What do we do now?" Ebuka finally asked. Obinna leaned back in his chair. "We have two choices." Ebuka raised an eyebrow. "We either keep hating each other and let everything fall apart," Obinna said, "or we stop fighting and figure out how to fix this mess." Ebuka smirked. "What? Just like that? We shake hands and suddenly we are best brothers again?" "No," Obinna admitted, "but it's a start." Ebuka studied him for a long moment. Then, slowly, he extended his hand. Obinna stared at it. For years, he had seen Ebuka as an enemy, but in that moment, he saw his brother, a brother he had betrayed, a brother he had abandoned. He reached out, their hands met. It wasn't warm, it wasn't easy, but it was real. Reconciliation wasn't immediate. Trust takes time to rebuild, but the mansion began to change. They started eating at the same table. At first, it was silent. Then, slowly, words were exchanged. The petty revenge stopped. No more shredded suits, no more stolen cars, no more late-night disruptions. They worked together at the company. It wasn't easy. They still argued, but now they listened. One evening, after a long day at the office, they sat in the study with a bottle of wine, just like their father used to. "You still drive like a madman," Obinna muttered. Ebuka chuckled. "You still act like an old man." Ebuka poured another drink and leaned back. You know, maybe that wasn't entirely wrong. Obinna raised an eyebrow. About what? Ebuka swirled his glass. We let our egos get in the way. We let pride ruin everything. Obinna exhaled. Yeah, but we still have a chance to fix it. Ebuka smirked. Then let's fix it. That night, for the first time since their father's death, they laughed. Not as enemies, not as rivals, but as brothers. 6 months passed and the lawyer returned. Well, he asked. Obinna and Ebuka stood side by side. We'll keep everything, Obinna said. But only if we share it, Ebuka added. The lawyer studied them, then nodded. Your father would have been proud. Maybe, maybe not. But one thing was certain. They had won their father's final test. Not through wealth, but through brotherhood. Here is the moral lesson of this story. Pride, resentment, and ego can destroy relationships, but humility and forgiveness rebuild them. In a world where family fights over wealth, this story is a reminder that no amount of riches can replace the people we are meant to share them with. Their father's test had been cruel, but in the end, it saved them. Please, share your thoughts in the comments. As always, this is African Tales by Mama Yad. Please do not forget to like, subscribe, and share. See you next time. Thank you for watching.